Football and 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The Inside the Birds podcast you can get on all podcasting platforms. And, of course, their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. They have a bye week this week, the guys at Inside the Birds. So what are we looking at on the bye week? Well, what can this team get from their younger players? We'll take a look at some of the rookies, the draft class, and some of the moves that maybe they could make to help this team out moving forward. Are there any guys in this group here, Adam Caplan, that could help this team? Some of them, a lot of people wondering, all right, what have they done so far? Quinyon Mitchell, the first-round pick, it's been pretty solid, but we'll look at this group of drafted players and see what they can give this team coming out of the bye week. Adam Caplan, how are you?
Mike, I'm well. Yeah, no, we had a big show today. In fact, we don't take any time off. We had well over an hour show. In fact, what we did today was, and we have another show coming on Monday, which is going to be the self-scout on what the Eagles need to do going forward, which is a lot on defense in particular. But what we did today is partially what we're going to do with you right now. We delve into the rookie class, who's contributing, who's not, what we heard about the roles were going to be when they were drafted, what they are now. And then we also, Mike, we look at every single transaction that they had in the offseason, and we go through it, what the thought process was, why they signed the player, what the contract looked like, why it's not working out, why it is working out, and what needs to happen going further. So we took an examination, really today, of their whole roster.
Yeah, well, their whole roster has a lot of questions, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where their top 3 draft choices were on defense. Quinyon Mitchell, let's get your overview of what he's been through the first 4. I mean, there was some thoughts. Was he the right guy? You had Terrion Arnold. We got to see him the other night on Monday Night Football. Had a rough night at the office. He had plenty of penalties. But Mitchell, give us your thoughts on his first 4 games as a pro.
Yeah, so Mike, we had said as soon as he was drafted, he'll start week 1. I know people thought we were out of our mind. We said it's very simple. If he knows what he's doing, he's starting week 1. There would never be any debate, argument, discussion. Internally, they were like, this is the guy. He's going to start for us as long as you know what he was doing. Vic Fangio started him on the 3rd team. People overreacted. We said it means absolutely nothing. Let's see what happens at the end of training camp. And, by the way, he was running one of the ones very early in camp. But then you had the DeJean injury where DeJean was going to line up at nickel. He had the hamstring injury, so that kind of, and we'll talk about him in a couple minutes, that cut down his progress, and then they had to make a decision what to do with Mitchell, whether they're going to line up at inside or outside. And by the way, he did both in training camp, and in the end, Mike, Mitchell looked really good. Is he perfect? No. There's no perfect rookie. He's ahead of schedule. The one issue that he has is playing in man coverage. This was an issue for him at Toledo. He never really did it. And now he's having to do it in the pros, and it's certainly a work in progress.
All right. Yeah, I think Mitchell's been pretty impressive. He's shown some cockiness, too. I mean, and he's been able to back it up. I mean, he's been a guy that so far you feel good about. You feel good about that draft choice. Cooper DeJean, I guess he's been more impactful, or not as very impactful, as a punt returner. Some no fault of his own there. But will we start to see his role expand, and do we know how they're going to end up using him? That was a big topic of conversation when he got drafted.
Yeah, Mike, we're fully expecting that he's going to play nickel soon. Whether he's full-time nickel or cut into Maddox's snaps is going to happen. And now the other thing, Mike, you're going to see with him, they could call him a nickel all they want, but they're going to play what we call big nickel, 3 safeties. You'll probably see him doing that. But the one thing you're going to see at some point is he's going to start covering tight ends. You saw Cade Otton have some success last week. Their linebackers don't cover very well, and he's got good size, DeJean. He's in the 6-foot range. He's got 3 inches plus on Maddox, and he's a better athlete. He's got positional versatility. This guy's going to be a really good player for them. You just got to understand, Mike. He came back from the broken leg that he suffered last November, I believe it was. Then he has this hamstring injury, Mike, that kind of came out of nowhere while he was working out before he got to training camp. So it kind of stunted his progress a little bit, but we're excited to see him going forward.
Yeah, I know. Cooper DeJean has not been a big impact on the defensive side of the ball. This defense has not been very good. Maybe he's a guy that can help give this defense a little bit different look, a little different feel to it. This team needs edge rushing. They need pass rush. They took a guy in the 3rd round. Can he help them out?
Well, all right. Jalix Hunt, Mike, is sort of a fascinating project. for the Eagles. They knew that the first 2 years he probably wouldn't contribute very much. First year, maybe not at all. Now, he did see 5 snaps on defense for his first snaps on defense, quite frankly, as a rookie last week. 5 snaps. They're not impactful, but now he knows what it looks like. And again, with the depth, which is terrible for the Eagles at edge rush. I mean, it's other than BG, they're not getting anything out of it. It's depth is not about numbers; it's about production. They're just not getting it. Arguably, the NFL's worst edge rush group when it comes to production. Like that's kind of where they're at. So we think they're going to sprinkle him in. He's a willing learner, pretty sharp kid, from what we understand. Had a very odd late growth spurt around 19 years old, Mike, which is kind of crazy. You don't really see that. But because he grew so much, he decided, and smartly, that he needed to go somewhere to be an edge rusher, and it really paid off for him. As we reported at the time, we noted this a couple months ago, that we had heard that some of the coaches on other teams were lobbying their GMs to draft this guy. But it's not about year 1 with him, Mike, not probably about year 2. It's about year 3, which is the projection for him to be a factor.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I don't know that a lot of people have the expectation that he's going to come in there and do much, but, hey, there is an option there. It's Jalix Hunt, the 3rd-round pick. Then you get into a bunch of guys who have made small impacts, if any, and we'll see if they can help this team as they come out of the bye. Obviously, the running back spot has not been a problem. Will Shipley, though, what kind of role has he had, and what kind of role can he have to help this offense a bit?
Mike, this has been strange. So he had the 4 motion plays in Week 1 against Green Bay. Certainly had some impact. I think he was on the field when Barkley scored his touchdown in Week 1. I think the touchdown catch we're talking about. Nevertheless, then last week he had 1 snap. Then they took him out. He never played another snap on offense. Now he has been back on kickoff return. What we were assuming, and it certainly could happen because they need to do it. Because you could see the difference of the both of them in training camp. Shipley's more explosive than Gainwell. What could happen is Shipley could start cutting into Gainwell's role. That certainly could happen. Doesn't mean he's going to take it this year, but in the future, as we said months ago, that remember Gainwell's in the final year of his rookie deal, and if Shipley does well, he certainly could take his job in 2025. But we're not there yet.
Talking with Adam Caplan, football at 4. Looking at the Eagles at the bye with the rookie class, can they help this team in the second half? Anais Smith is a guy, wide receiver. They could use some help there, obviously, but he has been hurt. But if he comes back, is he a guy that could give this team a little bit of life in that slot spot or even somewhere else? But this whole receiving core has been out. Yeah,
Anais Smith, Mike, when you look at his ability, he is a slot receiver and punt returner. He's got really good size, by the way. To be a slot receiver. He's really powerfully built, and also he did some gadget stuff at Texas A&M. He's got talent. He had a real drops problem the first couple weeks and started to cure it. Then he had this mysterious foot injury. I'm sorry. It's another. It's not related to the old one, I thought, from what I understand. Remember, he had a stress fracture, but something happened to him late in August, and their hope is that he'll be back for the second half. And now, we should mention Britton Covey was going to be their slot receiver. He did a very good job before he broke his shoulder blade. He won't be back till the second half of the season. So they'll have some decisions to make, around Week 10, Week 11. Oh, by the way, speaking of that, they don't play a team with a winning schedule until Week 11 when they play Washington. At least right now, of course, the way the records are of these teams that are coming up.
Well, I guess one of the questions with that is because, the Eagles, yes, their receiving core has been hurt. But we've seen a lot of teams that have guys that, have virtually come out of nowhere and been productive wide receivers for them. It seems that the Eagles just cannot find these guys that, unless you're Devontae Smith, first-round pick, A.J. Brown, for big-time wide receiver, they're not developing guys that can contribute it in any way other than their top 2.
It's funny you say that because that was the subject of today's show where the Eagles have done. It's not just development, Mike. Just look, when your 2 starters are hurt, obviously it's going to be a major downgrade to anyone you go to because you're talking about A.J. Brown, top 3 receiver, Devontae Smith, somewhere in top 10, top 12. But could you get someone maybe in the 40s, 50s? Okay, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. Maybe in the 60s or 70s of the league if you looked at the receiver cores in the National Football League. Could you just not be at such a major downgrade? And the thing that surprised us was, Mike, So the Texans cut Noah Brown, who was with Kellen Moore in Dallas. Washington signs them for the veteran minimum right before the season started. Why couldn't the Eagles sign him? Mm-hmm. By the way, he's got better size than John Dotson. Wouldn't cost them anything. I just didn't understand that. That was not good planning on the Eagles. That's one thing they're going to have to look at next year is not, on your point, developing backup receivers, but signing better quality backups. That has got to be a priority for Howie Roseman and his front office.
Well, and they've done a lot of this. They've drafted a bunch of guys, Watkins and Hightower and a bunch of them, and they've all flamed out. I know a lot of them are 5th and 6th rounders, so what are you expecting? But, there's a lot of guys around the league that no one's ever – who's the guy who scored the touchdown last night? Where'd he come from, right? I mean, not that
Kadar Hodge. Yeah, he came from Cleveland, the acceleration that he had. But you're right, Mike. Look, they do a great job of developing these unknown offensive linemen. Look, Aaron Moorhead's a guy that was a holdover from the previous staff. He's got to do a better job of developing these backup receivers. Yeah, Mike, I think it's fair. I don't think there's any question about it. Player development, and what we heard when Sirianni, by the way, was hired, Mike, is one of the things the front office liked was that he put a emphasis on player development. And, they have that period after practice where the players get extra practice time. That's great. But how about when you're actually practicing with a team? How about getting these guys better? And that's the thing.
All right, Adam, a couple more. See if any of these guys – there's a spot, linebacker. I don't know what you think of the linebackers so far, but Jeremiah Trotter, we had good reports about him in camp. Is they going to get to a point where they feel more comfortable with him than one of the two guys that are in there?
Yeah, so right now, Mike, he's more or less, depending on which week it is, their 4th or 5th inside linebacker. You only play 4, Mike. Teams don't play in an odd man front that they run. You have 2 inside backers that play a lot. They take up almost all the snaps. The 3rd guy will sub out. The 4th guy will play a little bit, and that's it. You don't go to 5th or 6th guy. So Trot Jr. right now doesn't figure into it. However, if N'Kobe D did not play well last week, we're being nice about it. If he doesn't start playing better, he needs to play better. He was really good against the Saints last week. Not good. He had another game which was not good against Atlanta. He's got to play more consistent football. So we'll talk more about potential changes next week. That's one that Vic Fangio and his group can look at. Their tackling, Mike, overall, as we know, has been awful. They may be the NFL's worst tackling team. And I know these things, as we've been told over the years, these things usually get cleaned up and even out. But they got so many problems, Michael, on defense. Tackling is kind of chief among them.
Yeah, their tackling's been a big-time problem. Linebackers have been, other than Baun in that first game, they've been kind of non-existent. Keegan, Johnny Wilson, and Dylan McMahon, who got cut. So really, Keegan, he's kind of a backup guy way down the line. Johnny Wilson, though, 4 games, hasn't had much of an impact. Although the 1 9-yard catch he had, I thought he did a good job on.
He did. He turned upfield. But, look, he's a tall guy, just under 6'7". He doesn't move very well. He's actually a really good blocker at the perimeter. He does a good job of walling off. He takes pride in, very clear, that's something to feel good about if you're the Eagles. But they didn't sign him they didn't draft him to be a backup receiver, not a blocking receiver. They drafted him to be a wide receiver. And with the injury problem that they've had, Mike, their hope was that he'd be more of a factor as a receiver. Now, I know some people have suggested to us, well, maybe Hurts doesn't trust them. I can't answer that. Only Jalen can. I mean, heck, he doesn't seem to trust any of the backup receivers, quite frankly.
Well, I'll tell you what. That was the story of last night. His cousins, London goes out, and the guy Hodge comes in, and he has the trust to zip it to him.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I look, it's fair. We don't go into conspiracy theories at all, but we look at our comments on our YouTube channel. Everybody, there are a lot of people piling on Hurts, and some of it's just not fair and over the top. But there's some stuff. Look, there's some stuff that's valid. The processing's been an issue. We've outlined this with video. We've shown people we just let the tape speak for it. We explain what the tape looks like. Watch our shows with Greg Cosell this week. They're on YouTube. You can watch it or you can listen to it on a pod version. If you're also, by the way, if you subscribe to our Patreon, if you want to be a member, you get to talk with Greg every Tuesday at 8 p.m. By the way, the members kind of run it. We turn it over to them. They ask Greg questions. He answers it. He loves it. and they learn so much about football. And Mosher drops some tape in there while we're doing it. It's actually really cool. So that's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds if you want to join. And also, we do every Wednesday night, Jeff and I, and Andrew DeCecco comes in occasionally. We do that at 8 o'clock, and we get after it. We give them a lot of exclusive stuff we don't put on our pods. It's cool, Mike. We're doing everything we can to educate people. Some people they're going to feel it the way they're going to feel, and that's fine. We just give you enough information that you can make a decision on your own.
All right, well, check that out on all the Inside the Birds platforms, their Patreon, their YouTube, and, of course, their podcast, Inside the Birds, on all podcasting platforms, and right here on Football at 4. Adam Caplan, everybody. Take care, bud.
Thank you.
All right, there's Adam Caplan here on Football at 4.